You can relax now. You really can. There's no communism on the rise, no revolution at all. Yeah, times are turbulent, but come on, enough of the paranoia. I'm going to explain. Recently, 2020 has been a pretty bad year. And I think everybody across the political spectrum would agree with that. And nobody will dispute that 2020 has been pretty volatile. Well, you had the COVID crisis, you had that caused basically a near economic collapse where our economic future is pretty uncertain. We had police brutality, which launched some protests, which were mostly peaceful. Some of it was kind of violent in the beginning, but it is scaled down to being mostly peaceful. But we have a media machine, both Fox News and CNN, that loves to play on these narratives for because the ratings would be sexy to talk about this sort of thing, and they try to exaggerate the extreme writers, which there are very few of. If anything, is really the law enforcement that's attacking mostly peaceful protesters. No, I'm not saying every cop in the world, every cop in the United States is a terrible person. And in fact, I will even go as far as say most of them aren't. So I'm not sitting there bashing cops just to be bashing cops or what have you. But I will criticize actual terrible people within law enforcement when they do wrong, and I will make no apologies for that. But there are people on the right wing right now. I'm hearing people saying, "Oh, we're in the cusp of a communist revolution right now. Look what they're doing, the Antifa and the Black Lives Matter and the Marxists and the anarchists and I mean, as if the entire radical left are united. You should really know the left the way I know the left. And believe me, I am probably in the most milquetoast, um, soft side of that left, and I've always been in there. I've always leaned toward center left style European social democracy or socialism as is defined in places like the Nordic countries. So that puts me pretty much in the milk toast area of the left. And I've gotten criticism by people on the hard left for not being left wing enough, and of course, with the right wing people, they think that I have probably a placard dedicated to Chairman Mao, when the only photo that I have that I stand proudly by is Eugene Victor Debs, who was definitely not a communist, probably further left than myself, and probably more Marxist than myself that I've ever been, but certainly no communist as far as I am concerned. Um, Ignorance runs amok because people just think that the that I don't know, when they just think that everybody on the left are all united, and all they think that the Stalinists and the Trots and the Maoists and the Castroites and those that follow Che Guevara, and those that follow the Kim dynasty in North Korea, and those that follow Tito Yugoslavia, and those that follow the anti-authoritarian moderate socialists of Western Europe, that they're all intertwined and they're all buddy buddy with Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama and Bill and Hillary Clinton. Oh my God, the right wing actually do believe this sort of thing, and they also believe that national socialists are leftists too. So much ignorance. If I was a political science professor with some of these right wingers, I would objectively give them a failing grade for being so ignorant. I mean, I'm not saying that they have to agree with any faction of the left. I'm cool if they want to be conservative, but my gosh, at least familiarize yourself with the various schools of leftism. Believe me, I I am 51 years old. Now I've been pretty much on the left pretty much all my life. Um, and I'm going to tell you something. Unity among the left to get anything done is next to impossible. It's just next to impossible. I've seen it over and over and over again over the years. I have seen faction fights. I have seen, I mean the left is pretty much inept in this country. As far as I tell you, the right wing in this country is a hell of a lot more organized than the left is, and they're so organized that they have taken moderate liberals and pushed them to the right over the years. So they kind of need to look back and take a look what's going on. Communist revolution, even before the instability started this year. Um, Between the end of the Cold War and COVID, the right wing just wanted to play Cold War and continue to find communism under beds that were not there. I mean, by the 1980s, when Mikhail Gorbachev became General Secretary of the Soviet Union, the premier, he he initiated perestroika, glasnost, moderated the life in Soviet Union and introduced democracy. And Reagan and Gorbachev were successful in signing a series of peace treaties and which started to reduce nuclear weapons. It was actually a very optimistic time and was about time. I mean, Gorbachev was a moderating force on Reagan, because Reagan was a warmonger, but he turned into being pro peace finally. So he started to moderate himself. Well, by 1989 in October, the Berlin Wall came down, and by Christmas time, almost every country in Eastern Europe, with the exception of Albania, communism pretty much disappeared. And I think that in Albania was like in 1992 they decided to dismantle their communist system. I'm not sure about. I mean, I know it was in the 1990s with Albania, but I think it was 1992. Anybody see otherwise, just let me know, and I will stand corrected. But by the end of 1991, the Soviet Union ceased to exist. So, what existed in the communist world? Cuba, which even in terms of communism is certainly considerably less authoritarian than North Korea or China, far less authoritarian than China. And the United States over the years have continued to embrace China and let China walk all over us with our manufacturing base being depleted and everything. But we sit there and kick Cuba around, like and just treat the Cuba like shit when Cuba is not even any threat whatsoever. Um, and to this day, I've always thought that sanctions against Cuba was stupid. It was, I mean, if you want to end communism in Cuba, drop the sanctions, and Cuba will start reforming the way they did in the Soviet Union in the late 80s, early 1990s, and you'll see Cuba turn into a nice little social democracy once they scrap communism. They will have the common sense to keep their healthcare system. the one good thing about Cuba. But they will introduce free enterprise in there, and they already got an educated population. And so they kind of have an infrastructure for a bright future once their communist system is dismantled. So I don't understand why the United States wants to kick Cuba while it's down currently. Venezuela, let me tell you about Venezuela. It may be governed by an officially communist party. And yeah, I know they're called the United Socialist Party, but it has a communist ideology. But there is an opposition in Venezuela too, in the parliament. And they have not been able to turn Venezuela into Cuba. In fact, Venezuela is still largely a free enterprise economy. Yeah, the government may not want it to be that way, but it is. So when the right wing in this country says Venezuela is socialist, the truth is it isn't. And it's not, well, you got conservative and capitalists on one side and those dirty socialists controlling it on the other side of Venezuela. It's not like that. There's a lot of nuance in there. For starters, the opposition in Venezuela is ideologically mixed. Yeah, you got the hard right that are obviously in there. You got the moderate center right conservative forces. You even got social democrats and post communists in the opposition against Maduro. So again, there's not a united left. And in some cases, the left are going to be siding with the mainstream center left, center right forces in some individual cases, sometimes for the better, sometimes for the worse. So, it's amazing how people just like to straw man and reject nuance. And it really is mentally exhausting how they do so. But I am ranting on and on and on. So the Soviet Union collapsed. There was no more communism. Yeah, even China. China is an authoritarian country. Don't like the authoritarianism, and they're doing really weird things that I think that the West should be weary of, like a credit score system where you are pretty much monitored is pretty much a brave new world shit there, and the United States and the West should be careful of adopting it. But I mean, some of that exists in the United States within the corporate sector anyway, and so that's what they need to be aware of. But again, as far as a nation controlling the means of productions in the way that it was defined during the days of Joe Stalin and Mao Zedong and Vladimir Lenin. Nah, I mean, dinosaurs like North Korea, they're a joke. I mean, they're a joke. I mean, it's more of a dynasty than anything else, and you know, give it a time. I will predict in about 15 years, North and South Korea will be reunited, and it would not be because the communists won. It'll be because communism in itself is a failure, and that's the South Korea will absorb North Korea and the way West Germany, East Germany united, and they're going to have a bright future in the same way that Germany has a bright future today. But here in the United States, we continue to find socialists and communists where they're not at. And with the election of Bill Clinton in 1992, and I'm gonna tell y'all something. Bill Clinton is the reason I turned socialist, but not the way that the right wing would imagine it. I was a New Deal liberal when I voted for Bill Clinton in 1992, and I was hoping for New Deal economics to come back by the rejection of Reagan and Bush back then. That's Bush Senior, not G.W. Bush. But I was hoping for that. But what happened instead of dismantling Reaganism, Bill Clinton gave us Ronald Reagan in a softer package. I mean, you know, the he didn't do that much for poor or middle class people, unions continue to get weaker and weaker. You know, even in the public sector, they came up with ideas like hiring through temp agencies, things like that. I mean, just to find another way to deny ordinary folks a chance for a good wage job with good benefits. Some socialist Bill Clinton is. I mean, he made damn sure through his Democratic Leadership Council that liberalism would remain the dirty word, and that the New Deal stuff was a thing of the past. When I was in college, I was with the college Democrats at East Carolina University, and they told me, you have to understand, we're not the Democratic Party of FDR anymore. This is the Democratic Party. We're in the Bill Clinton era. The FDR New Deal era is over. I was told that. And I was like, well, see ya. Bye bye. I ended up in the Socialist Party USA. I ended up in Democratic Socialists of America. And that's pretty much where I orbited for many, many years. But anyway, I'm not trying to make this about me. But well, the Democrats have been called socialists, and they have been kept on accusing the Democrats of trying to. Well, since there was no communism, they what they thought was an insult was a compliment. Oh, well, the Democrats are trying to make it like it is in those Nordic countries. What, the Nordic countries are bad? The Western Europe is bad? Is that what they're trying to say? I've even heard Rush Limbaugh in the mid 1990s say, "Well, the Democratic Party is not even behaving like the Democrats as we know it. They're behaving like British Labour Party MPs." I freaking wish, and I don't mean like the Tony Blair era Labor Party. I mean going back to Harold Wilson and Clement Attlee. I wish they were the old school labor socialists of yesteryear, and they kind of have returned back to that in the UK. Thank you, Jeremy Corbyn, and hopefully Keir Starmer will not be a return to Blairism. I've heard he's a mixed bag. The verdict is to be heard later on. Oh my gosh, Barack Obama. He got elected, and for 8 years, they have kept calling him a socialist, a communist. And then, and honestly, when Barack Obama was interviewed, he made me mad when he said it, but it's just truth. He said his policies are so conservative, he could have passed for a moderate Reagan Republican in the 1980s. Unfortunately, he's correct. My problem was that Obama was not left wing enough. Dwight Eisenhower was more of a socialist in the 1950s than Barack Obama was in the last decade. That's the God honest truth. But, by 2014, with the Ferguson, Missouri situation, the Black Lives Matter, everybody started getting scared of this, Black Lives Matter. They thought it was the return of the Black Panther parties from the 1960s and all of that. And they kind of try to link Obama to causing racial division. And according to some of these right wingers, I guess racial division means how dare a black man gets elected as president. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a bootlicker for Obama. I got my problems with Obama. But, if I would say there's anything wrong with Obama, he was too conservative as far as his governance was concerned. Oh, there was some good things he did. It was some good things he did. The peace treaty with Iran, it was one of his best things that he did while he was president. And when Trump reversed that, which is absolutely wrong of Donald Trump. But 2016 came along, and Bernie Sanders wanted to put a stop to the right wing direction that the Democratic Party was going into, and of course the DNC and rigged the primaries and cheated Bernie Sanders in 2016, as they did later on in 2020. but I guess with Bernie Sanders in the race, the right wing just thought that, oh my goodness, that proves that the Democratic Party is socialist or communist. Look at Bernie Sanders, which Bernie Sanders is a very, very, very mild social democrat. Um, Same thing with Alexandria Ocasio Cortez, who got elected in 2018, and the other members of the squad. They're pretty much mild social democrats. But yeah, and the resistance is futile. I mean, the resistance against Trump is silly because they call him an asshole in public, and then these people like Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer okay Trump's judges, and they go and vote for large military budgets and reauthorize the Patriot Act. And while they accuse him of being linking him to Russia on one hand, they're going to go and give him power over our national foreign policy, where it would be, if it was true, it would put us in greater danger. Some resistance, that is. But the point I'm trying to make is, with all this volatile situation, the economy in major recession, bordering on depression, sure, and with the police brutality and everything, I do not believe we're in the cusp of a communist revolution. And the only people who are saying that are people who wants to be violent. I'm not going to mention any names on YouTube right now, but there is one person that I've been kind of listening to for a while, and this cat is like really obsessed. He claims he's not a racist, but he's obsessed with the Turner Diaries. You don't know what the Turner Diaries is? It's a scary novel. Is about a white nationalist militia that takes over the United States government, and then they end up taking over the world and exterminating what they consider the lesser race. This person claims he's not a racist, but he talks a lot about the Turner Diaries, and he's enamored with the book. And just and he's going around saying we're in the cusp of a communist revolution, and he is talking about he wants to go and engage in violence and everything, and he's a powder keg. He is a Timothy McVeigh waiting to happen. And we do have a lot of problems, and I do believe we're kind of in a cusp of some kind of social unrest that's going on, but somehow this is not like something that's totally new. That like we never experienced social unrest in the United States before. We have experienced it many, many a times, and somehow we tiptoe back into stability. And I will expect in probably another 2 or 3 years, when this COVID is pretty much withering away, and just people just in a way find a way to just go on with their lives. And I just don't see any change of that. I mean, this just happens. This happens like maybe once, every so often, maybe a couple of times in a century. There's civil unrest in our society, and somehow afterwards, things settle, and that's what's going on now. Um, there's no way in America, or really anywhere in the Western world, you can establish a full-fledged classic communist regime. What, taking over the means of productions, that sort of thing, especially in America, which I got a lot of problems with America in a lot of ways, but Americans, there is a side of America which is benevolent, and there is a rebellious streak, and I don't mean just on the right. The left's got their rebellious streak too, um, and I'm one of them. But I've been going against the grain as long as I can remember. And as I said, we're not in the cusp of a communist revolution. So please, please, And for those who are sensible on the right, just relax. We're not in the cusp of a communist revolution. Far from it. If you like what you heard today, press like, press dislike if you hate it. I'm Bernie Bro. Comment either way, whether you like what I have to say or not. Comment either way and subscribe to this channel. And feel free to share this information. And until next time, peace. And Bernie Sanders for president 2024. I'm not kidding when I said that.